How did a single Christmas Eve end with a family home marked for demolition? I was locked outside in -10 degrees while my father laughed and opened gifts without me. An hour later, a black limousine arrived, and everything they thought they owned stopped being theirs. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? It started at dinner. The table was set like something out of a magazine, white linen, candles, the whole performance. My stepmother, Elaine, had spent 2 days cooking, and everyone was passing dishes and making small talk about the weather, about Uncle Victor's new car, about everything except what mattered. I was sitting between my father, Richard, and Victor, trying to keep my mouth shut and just get through the evening. That was my mistake, thinking silence would be enough. "Drew's been doing well with that little tire place," Elaine said, trying to include me. She meant well, but the words came out wrong. Little. Place. My father cut into his ham without looking up. "It's honest work." The tone said everything else. Honest work, meaning simple, meaning beneath him, meaning nothing to be proud of. I felt my jaw tighten. "The shop's doing fine. We're expanding in January." "Expanding," Victor repeated, like he was tasting something sour. "Into what? A second bay?" 3 more bays, 2 new hires. We landed a commercial contract. My father finally looked at me. "Drew, no one's questioning your effort, but let's not pretend changing tires is the same as building something real." The room went quiet. Elaine stared at her plate. Victor smiled into his wine glass. "I built that shop from nothing," I said, keeping my voice level. "No loans from you, no connections, no handouts." "And we're very proud," my father said, in that voice he used when he wanted to sound reasonable while putting someone in their place. "But there's a difference between working with your hands and working with your mind. You chose your path." "I chose not to ride on someone else's name." His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. The smile disappeared. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." He set the fork down slowly, deliberately. "Drew, I think you're confused about how respect works in this family. You don't get to sit at this table and insult—" "I didn't insult anyone. I stated a fact." "Get out." I blinked. "What?" "You heard me. Get out of my house." Elaine touched his arm. "Richard, it's Christmas Eve. I don't care what day it is. He can come back when he learns some gratitude." I stood up. My chair scraped against the hardwood. "Fine." I walked to the door, grabbed my coat from the rack. Behind me, I could hear Victor murmuring something, my father's low response. The door was heavy, solid oak, the kind of door that made a statement. I pulled it open and stepped into the cold. The door slammed shut behind me. I stood there for a second, waiting for it to reopen, for someone to call me back. Nothing. I tried the handle. Locked. The temperature was maybe 12 degrees, and dropping. My breath came out in white clouds. I had my coat, but no gloves, no hat. My truck keys were in my pocket, at least. Through the front window, I could see them. The whole family, moving back to the table. Elaine was serving dessert now. My father was laughing at something Victor said. It was like I'd never been there at all. I pulled out my phone and texted my father. "Seriously? It's freezing out here." The message showed as delivered. Then read. No response. I tried calling. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I called Elaine. Same thing. Victor didn't even pick up. I stood in the driveway, snow crunching under my boots, and watched my family celebrate Christmas without me. They moved into the living room. Someone, Victor probably, was carrying gifts to the tree. They were opening presents now. I could see the shapes moving, the bright paper, the smiles. My fingers were going numb. I walked to my truck, an old Ford I'd rebuilt myself. The engine turned over on the second try, and I cranked the heat up as high as it would go. The vents blew cold air for a long minute before warmth started to creep in. I sat there, hands pressed against the vents, and stared at the house. This was the message. This was the point he wanted to make. You're nothing. You're outside. You don't belong. An hour passed. Maybe more. The windows fogged up, then cleared as the defroster kicked in. My phone buzzed once, a notification from the family group chat. Someone had posted a photo of the tree. I didn't open it. Then, through the windshield, I saw headlights. A car was coming down the street, slow and deliberate. Not a neighbor's car. This was something else. A black limousine, long and sleek, out of place in this suburban neighborhood. It slowed as it approached the house, then stopped at the curb. The engine idled. The windows were tinted dark. No one got out. I watched it sit there, silent and waiting, and felt something shift in my chest. This wasn't random. I stayed in the truck, engine running, and watched the limousine. It didn't move. Whoever was inside wasn't in a hurry. My phone buzzed again. Another group chat notification. I opened it this time. Victor had written, "Great Christmas. Family's everything." My father had replied with a thumbs up emoji. Someone else, probably Elaine, had posted another photo. Everyone smiling around the fireplace. I wasn't in the frame. I'd been cropped out of the evening entirely, and they were making sure I knew it. I closed the app and leaned back against the cold seat. This wasn't new. It had never been new. I remembered the summer I was 16. I'd rebuilt the engine on a neighbor's lawnmower for $20. My father found out and called it tinkering. Said I should focus on school, on getting into a good college, on doing something that mattered. I remembered telling him I liked working with engines, that I was good at it. He'd looked at me like I just admitted to a crime. "Drew," he'd said, "you're better than that." Better than what? Better than honest work? Better than building something with my own hands? I went to community college for 2 years because that's what he wanted. Studied business because he said it was practical. Hated every minute of it. Dropped out and got a job at a tire shop on the east side of town. He didn't speak to me for 3 months. When he finally did, it was to tell me I was wasting my potential. I worked at that shop for 6 years, learned everything I could, saved every dollar. The owner, an old guy named Frank, taught me how to read people, how to run a business, how to make customers feel like they mattered. When Frank retired, he offered to sell me the place. I took out a small loan, used every cent I'd saved, and bought it. I renamed it Holden Tire Services. My father never came to the opening. He sent a card. It said, "Congratulations on your new venture. Hope it works out." That was 2 years ago. The shop was profitable now. We had steady clients, good reviews, a reputation for fair prices and solid work. I'd hired 2 guys, paid them well, and we were about to expand. None of that mattered to my father. To him, I was still just a mechanic, still just the son who didn't live up to the family image. And tonight, he'd made it clear I didn't belong. The limousine was still idling at the curb. I checked the time. Almost 10 p.m. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't the group chat. It was a text from my father. "You ruined Christmas. Hope you're happy." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it without replying. I put the truck in gear and backed out of the driveway, tires crunching through the snow. The limousine didn't move as I passed it. I caught a glimpse of the driver, older, professional, staring straight ahead. I drove to the gas station 3 blocks away. The fluorescent lights were harsh and bright, and the clerk behind the counter looked half asleep. I bought a coffee I didn't want and stood outside under the overhang, letting the heat from the cup warm my hands. This was rock bottom, I thought. Spending Christmas Eve alone at a gas station because my own family locked me out in the cold. But that wasn't quite true. Rock bottom would have been believing I deserved it. I finished the coffee and got back in the truck. Drove across town to my apartment. A small 1-bedroom above a dry cleaner. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Paid for with money I'd earned. Inside, I turned on the lights and stood in the middle of the living room, still wearing my coat. The apartment was quiet. No tree, no decorations. I hadn't bothered this year. I sat down on the couch and pulled out my phone, scrolled through old messages, old photos, stopped on one from 3 years ago, me and my grandmother Margaret at her place in the city. She'd invited me for tea. We'd talked for hours. She'd asked about the shop, about my plans, about what I wanted to build. She'd listened. My father never asked those questions. I looked at the photo for a long time. My grandmother was standing next to me, small and elegant, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She owned half the commercial real estate in the city, maybe more. No one talked about it much, but everyone knew she was quiet power, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. I'd always wondered why she never stepped in when my father went after me, why she stayed silent during the arguments, the dismissals, the casual cruelty. Maybe she was waiting for something. Maybe she was watching to see what I'd do. I put the phone down and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow was Christmas. The shop was closed. I had nowhere to be, no one to see. For the first time in a long time, I felt completely alone. And strangely, that felt like clarity. I didn't sleep much. Around 3 a.m, I gave up and made coffee. Sat at the small kitchen table and stared at nothing. My phone was face down next to me. I hadn't checked it since the last message from my father. Didn't want to see what else they'd said in the group chat. Didn't want to know how they'd spun the story. But my mind kept circling back to the same thought. The house? Richard's house. The one he'd thrown me out of. The one he acted like he owned outright, like it was his castle and his kingdom. Except I remembered something. Years ago, maybe 10, I'd overheard a conversation between my father and my grandmother. I was supposed to be outside, but I'd come back in for a jacket. They were in the study, voices low. My father was asking about property taxes, about restructuring some paperwork, about putting his name on the deed. My grandmother had said no, not harshly, just no. The conversation had ended there. My father had come out looking tense, and I'd pretended I hadn't heard anything. At the time, I didn't understand what it meant. Now, sitting in my apartment at 3 a.m, I did. My grandmother owned the house. She owned most of the properties in the family, the commercial buildings, the rental units, even the summer place upstate. She'd built that empire herself, starting decades ago when no one thought a woman could do it. My father managed some of it, acted like he ran the show, but he didn't own it. He never had. I pulled my phone toward me and opened the browser, searched for property records in the county, found the address, pulled up the deed. Owner, Margaret T. Holden Trust. Not Richard, not joint ownership, just her name, filtered through a trust. I sat back and let that sink in. He'd locked me out of a house that wasn't even his. My phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. But then I saw the name, Grandmother. I opened the message. Are you all right? That was it. No preamble. No explanation of how she knew. I typed back, I'm fine. 3 dots appeared immediately. She was awake too. I heard what happened. Of course she had. Someone must have called her. Probably Elaine, trying to smooth things over. I wrote, it's not a big deal. It is. I didn't know what to say to that. Another message came through. Are you in town tomorrow? Yeah, shop's closed for the holiday. Good. I'll be arriving in the morning. Let's have lunch. I stared at the message. My grandmother didn't do spontaneous visits. She planned everything weeks in advance. Okay, I typed. I'll send a car. Noon. You don't have to. Noon, Drew. The conversation ended there. I put the phone down and sat in the silence. She was coming to the city. Tomorrow. After what happened. That wasn't a coincidence. I thought about the limousine idling outside the house. The way it had just sat there, waiting, watching. Had that been hers? I got up and paced the apartment. My mind was racing now, connecting pieces I'd ignored for years. The way my grandmother never interfered when my father went after me. The way she always asked about the shop, about my plans, about what I was building. The way she'd said no to putting his name on the deed. She'd been watching, waiting. For what? I pulled up the family group chat, scrolled through the messages I'd been avoiding. Victor. Some people just can't handle family. My father. We tried. He made his choice. Elaine, let's not dwell on it. Merry Christmas, everyone. More photos, more smiles. The narrative was set. I was the problem. I was the one who couldn't fit in. I closed the app and opened my calendar instead. There was a reminder I'd set weeks ago. December 24th. GM arrives. I'd marked it because my grandmother usually spent Christmas in the city, at her penthouse. She liked the quiet, liked being away from the family noise. I'd forgotten about it until now. She'd planned to be here. She'd known she'd be in town for Christmas. And now she wanted to have lunch. I looked at the time, almost 4 a.m., too early to do anything, too late to go back to sleep. I grabbed my coat and went down to the truck, drove through the empty streets to the shop. The building was dark, locked up tight, but I had my keys. Inside, I turned on the overhead lights and walked through the bays. Everything was clean, organized, ready for Monday. Tools on the walls, lifts in position, the smell of rubber and oil and cold concrete. This was mine. I'd built this. Not because of my last name, not because someone handed it to me, because I'd worked for it. My father thought that made me small. Maybe it was time to show him what small could do. I stayed at the shop until dawn, sitting in the office, drinking bad coffee and thinking. At 11:30, I went back to the apartment and changed into clean clothes. Nothing fancy, jeans and a button-down, the same thing I'd wear to meet a client. At noon, a black car pulled up outside, not a limousine this time, just a town car, sleek and professional. The driver got out and opened the door for me. Mr. Holden? That's me. Mrs. Holden is waiting. I climbed in. The car took me across town to the Meridian, a hotel with more stars than I could afford to count. The kind of place where doormen wore white gloves and the lobby smelled like expensive flowers. My grandmother was waiting in a private dining room on the 10th floor. She stood when I entered, small, elegant, her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She was 81, but she moved like someone 20 years younger. Drew. She embraced me briefly, then stepped back and looked at me. You look tired. I'm fine. Sit. We sat. A waiter appeared, poured water, handed us menus. My grandmother ordered for both of us without looking at the prices. The waiter nodded and disappeared. Tell me what happened, she said. I told her, all of it. The dinner, the argument, the door locking, the cold, watching them through the window, the group chat messages, the text from my father. She listened without interrupting. Her face didn't change. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, He's always been weak. I blinked. What? Your father. He's always been weak. Loud, but weak. He needs people to think he's important because he's never built anything that made him important on its own. I'd never heard her talk about him like this. He manages properties I bought 30 years ago. She continued. He takes credit for decisions I made. He acts like the family name means something because I made it mean something, but he's never understood that respect is earned, not inherited. The waiter returned with appetizers. My grandmother thanked him and waited until he left. You've earned it, she said, looking at me. The shop, the reputation, the expansion. You did that yourself? He doesn't see it that way. I know. That's his failure, not yours. We ate in silence for a few minutes. The food was incredible, but I barely tasted it. I'm going to handle this, she said finally. Handle what? The situation, the house, your father. I put down my fork. Grandmother, you don't have to. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it because it's time. Time for what? She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Time for him to understand reality. We finished lunch. She asked about the shop, about my plans for the expansion, about the commercial contract I'd mentioned. I told her everything, and she listened like she always did. Really listened, asking questions that showed she understood. When we were done, she stood. I have some calls to make. Stay in town tomorrow. Don't go anywhere. Why? You'll see. The car took me back to the apartment. I spent the rest of the day trying not to think about what she'd meant, trying not to build expectations. My phone buzzed around 6. The family group chat again. Victor had posted a video. My father standing by the tree, holding a glass of wine, giving some kind of toast. The camera panned around the room. Everyone smiling, everyone laughing. I watched it twice, then put the phone away. Around 9, another message came through. Not from the group chat, from an unknown number. This is Catherine Dunn. I work with your grandmother. Please confirm you're available tomorrow at 10 a.m. I wrote back, available for what? A meeting. Your grandmother will explain. Where? I'll send a car. I didn't argue, just replied, okay. The rest of the night was quiet. I tried to watch TV, but couldn't focus. Tried to read, but the words didn't stick. Finally, I gave up and went to bed. I dreamed about the house, about standing outside in the cold, watching my family through the window. But in the dream, the house was empty, just furniture and lights, no people. I woke up at 7, restless and wired. The car arrived at 9:45. Same driver as yesterday. He didn't say where we were going. We drove across the city, through neighborhoods I didn't recognize, until we reached a tall glass building downtown. The driver pulled into an underground garage and parked near an elevator. 10th floor, he said. I took the elevator up. The doors opened into a sleek office suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, everything spotless. A woman in her 40s stood near the reception desk. Mr. Holden? Yes. I'm Catherine. Your grandmother is in the conference room. Follow me. She led me down a hallway and opened a door. My grandmother was sitting at the head of a long table. Next to her was a man in his 50s, gray suit, calm expression. Drew, my grandmother said. This is Leonard Crane. He's been the family attorney for 20 years. I shook his hand and sat down. We're going to discuss the property on Sycamore Drive, my grandmother said. Sycamore Drive, my father's house. Okay, I said slowly. Leonard opened a folder and slid a document across the table. This is the deed. As you can see, the property is held in trust under Mrs. Holden's name. It has been since 1998. I looked at the paperwork. Everything was there, clear and legal. Your father has lived there for 18 years, Leonard continued. He's paid no rent, no mortgage. It's been provided as a family courtesy. A courtesy that's ending, my grandmother said. I looked at her. What do you mean? The property is being redeveloped. We're demolishing the house and building a mixed-use complex, condos on the top floors, retail on the ground level. Construction starts in March. I stared at her. You're tearing down the house? Yes. Does he know? Not yet. Leonard spoke up. We'll be notifying all parties tomorrow morning. Your father will have 90 days to vacate. I didn't know what to say. My grandmother leaned forward. This isn't punishment, Drew. It's business. That property is worth more developed than it is sitting there as a single-family home. I've been planning this for 2 years. 2 years? Yes. The permits came through last month. I was going to tell everyone after the holidays. She paused. But then I heard what happened on Christmas Eve. I felt something cold settle in my chest. So you moved up the timeline. I clarified the timeline. Your father has spent years acting like he owns something he doesn't. Like he built something he didn't. It's time he learned the difference. Leonard closed the folder. The meeting tomorrow is at the house, 10 a.m. We'll deliver the notice in person. Do you want me there? I asked. My grandmother smiled. Yes, I think you've earned the right to watch. I spent the rest of the day in a daze. Back at the apartment, I tried to process what was happening. My grandmother, quiet, composed, always in the background, was about to pull the foundation out from under my father's life, and she wanted me there to see it. Part of me felt vindicated, the same part that had been dismissed, belittled, erased for years, the part that had been locked outside in the cold while the family laughed. But another part of me felt uneasy. This was my father. Whatever else he was, whatever he'd done, he was still family. I thought about calling him, warning him. Then I remembered the text. You ruined Christmas. I didn't call. That night, I barely slept again. Kept checking the clock, watching the hours crawl toward morning. At 8, I got up and made coffee. Dressed carefully. Not too formal, not too casual. I wanted to look like I belonged there, like I wasn't some outsider being dragged into a corporate takedown. The car arrived at 9:30. Same driver. He nodded when I climbed in. Mrs. Holden is already en route, he said. We drove in silence. The streets were quieter on the day after Christmas. Most people were still at home, recovering from the holiday. When we turned onto Sycamore Drive, I saw the limousine parked at the curb. The same one from Christmas Eve. The driver pulled up behind it and parked. I got out. The air was cold and sharp. My breath came out in clouds. My grandmother was standing on the sidewalk, wearing a long black coat and leather gloves. Leonard was next to her, carrying a briefcase. Morning, Drew, she said. Morning. She looked at the house. Let's get this over with. We walked up the driveway. The Christmas lights were still up, blinking red and green. Someone had shoveled the walkway. My grandmother rang the doorbell. A long pause, then footsteps inside. The door opened. My father stood there, still in his bathrobe. His expression went from confusion to surprise to something harder when he saw me. Mother, he said, what's going on? May we come in? She asked. He hesitated, then stepped aside. We entered the foyer. Elaine appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. She looked nervous. Richard, my grandmother said, we need to talk. About what? The house. He frowned. What about it? Leonard stepped forward and handed him an envelope. This is a formal notice regarding the property at 428 Sycamore Drive. The owner, Mrs. Margaret Holden, acting through her trust, has decided to redevelop the land. You have 90 days to vacate. The room went still. My father opened the envelope slowly, pulled out the papers, read the first page. His face went pale. This is a joke, he said. It's not, my grandmother replied. You can't just kick us out. This is our home. It's my property. Always has been. He looked at Leonard. This can't be legal. It's entirely legal, Leonard said. The property is held in trust. You've been living here as a courtesy, with no lease agreement and no equity. The trust has the right to reclaim the property at any time with 90 days' notice, which we're providing now. My father's hands were shaking. Why? My grandmother's expression didn't change. Because it's time. Time for what? Time for you to understand that nothing in your life was ever yours. You've lived in a house I bought. You've worked in businesses I built. You've spent decades acting like you earned something you didn't. She paused. And 2 nights ago, you locked your son outside in the freezing cold because he had the audacity to remind you of that. He stared at her. That's what this is about? Him? This is about reality. Drew didn't ruin Christmas, Richard. You did, and you've been doing it for years. Elaine spoke up, her voice small. Margaret, please. There has to be another way. There isn't. My father turned to me. His face was twisted with anger. You smug little. Stop, my grandmother said. Her voice was quiet but absolute. You're going to stand there and listen. You're not going to yell. You're not going to make threats. You're going to hear what I have to say, and then we're going to leave. He closed his mouth. You've had every advantage, she continued. A good education, a family name, access to opportunities most people never get. And what did you build? Nothing. You managed properties I handed you. You took credit for decisions I made. You acted important because I let you. I worked. You showed up. That's not the same thing. She gestured to me. Drew built something. He took nothing and turned it into a business. He didn't ask for your help. He didn't need your approval. He did it anyway, and you treated him like he was beneath you. My father's jaw tightened. The house is coming down, my grandmother said. Construction starts in March. You'll have 90 days to find somewhere else to live. I suggest you start looking. Leonard handed him another document. This outlines the timeline and your responsibilities. If you have questions, you can contact my office. My grandmother turned toward the door. Come on, Drew. I followed her outside. Behind us, I heard my father say something, but I didn't catch the words. We walked down the driveway. The morning sun was bright, glinting off the snow. At the curb, my grandmother stopped and looked back at the house. Demolish, she said softly. Then she got into the limousine. I stood there for a moment longer, staring at the house. At the windows I'd watched through on Christmas Eve, at the door that had locked me out. It wasn't mine. It was never theirs. And soon it wouldn't exist at all. I got into the car. The ride back into the city was silent. My grandmother sat across from me, hands folded in her lap, looking out the window. Leonard had taken his own car. It was just the two of us. Finally, she spoke. How do you feel? I don't know. That's fair. I watched the houses slide past. Normal homes, normal families, people who probably weren't dealing with property trusts or demolition orders the day after Christmas. Did you really plan this 2 years ago? I asked. Yes. The development project is real. I've been working with architects, getting permits, negotiating with contractors. It's a good investment. But the timing, she said, became personal. I looked at her. Because of what he did. Because of what he's always done. Christmas Eve was just the final proof. She turned to face me. Drew, I've watched you for years. Watched you build something from nothing. Watched you stay quiet while he tore you down. I wanted to see if you'd break. And if I had? Then I would have stepped in sooner. She smiled slightly. But you didn't break. You kept building. That told me everything I needed to know. About me? About him. The city skyline came into view through the window. Glass towers reflecting the winter sun, streets busy with post-holiday traffic. My grandmother's world, the world of real power, real ownership, real consequences. You know what the difference is between you and your father? She asked. What? You understand that nothing is guaranteed, that you have to earn what you get. He's spent his entire life thinking the world owes him something because he has the right last name. She looked at me directly. The Holden name means something because I made it mean something, not him, me. I nodded slowly. When I started buying properties in the 60s, people laughed. A woman in real estate? They thought it was a hobby, something to keep me busy while my husband worked. She smiled, but there was steel in it. My husband didn't work. He drank and played golf. I built everything. And when he left, he tried to take half of it with him. I'd never heard this story. What happened? I showed him paperwork. Every property, every investment, every business decision, all in my name, legal and clear. He walked away with nothing. She paused. Your father watched that happen. He was 12 years old. You'd think he would have learned. What did he learn? That image matters more than substance. That if you act like you own something, people believe you. She shook her head. But acting isn't the same as owning. And eventually, someone asks to see the deed. We drove in silence for a while longer. What happens now? I asked. Now, the legal process moves forward. Richard will try to fight it, but he has no grounds. The property is mine. The decision is made. She paused. He'll probably reach out to you. To apologize? To blame you. I nodded. I'd expected that. Don't engage, she said. Let him rage. Let him call you every name he can think of. It won't change anything. And Uncle Victor? Victor will do whatever benefits Victor. Right now, that means distancing himself from your father. By next week, he'll be calling you, trying to rebuild bridges. He'll pretend he was always on your side. Should I take the call? She considered this. That's up to you. But remember, loyalty that shifts with the wind isn't loyalty, it's opportunism. The car pulled up outside my apartment building. The driver opened the door. My grandmother reached over and squeezed my hand. You're going to be fine, Drew. Better than fine. Thank you, I said. Don't thank me. I didn't do this for you. I did it because it was time. She smiled. But I'm glad you were there to see it. I got out of the car and watched it drive away. Stood on the sidewalk for a moment, feeling the cold air on my face, watching the exhaust from the tailpipe disappear into the winter morning. Everything had changed, and somehow I felt lighter than I had in years. Upstairs, I sat on the couch and waited for the inevitable. It came an hour later. My phone rang. My father's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. He called again and again, 5 times in 10 minutes. Then the text started. You did this. You turned her against me. You destroyed this family. I hope you're happy. After everything I did for you. You ungrateful piece of... I didn't respond to any of them. Just watched them come in, one after another, each one angrier than the last. My phone buzzed with a call. Not my father this time. Uncle Victor, I answered, curious. Drew, he said. His voice was careful, measured. I just heard about the house. Yeah. Listen, I want you to know. I had nothing to do with what happened on Christmas Eve. That was all Richard. Okay. I mean it. I thought kicking you out was wrong. I told him so. He hadn't. I'd been there, but I didn't argue. What do you want, Victor? A pause. I was wondering if you could talk to your grandmother. Maybe help smooth things over. This demolition thing, it's extreme. There has to be another solution. There isn't. Drew, come on, be reasonable. This is family. Family, I repeated, like when you all opened presents while I froze outside. Another pause. Longer this time. That was Richard's call, not mine. You didn't stop him. I didn't think he'd actually lock you out for the whole night. I thought it was just, making a point. He made his point. Now grandmother's making hers. This is going to ruin him, Drew. You understand that? He's got nothing without that house. No leverage, no image, nothing. Good. Victor's tone shifted. Got colder. You're enjoying this? I'm not crying about it. You know what? Maybe Richard was right about you. Maybe you are small-minded, petty. Maybe, but I own my shop. Can he say the same about his house? Victor hung up. I set the phone down and leaned back against the couch. Yeah, my grandmother had been right. Victor was already choosing sides, and it wasn't mine. The next few days were strange, quiet but charged, like waiting for a storm that had already started somewhere else. I went back to work on Monday. The shop felt normal. Familiar smells, familiar sounds, the comfortable routine of work that made sense. My guys didn't ask questions. If they'd heard anything about my family drama, they didn't mention it. Around noon, a customer came in with a flat tire. Older woman, nervous about the price. I checked it, patched it, told her what needed fixing. She kept apologizing for bothering me, like needing help with something to be ashamed of. It's no bother, I said. That's what we're here for. I patched the tire, balanced it, put it back on. Charged her $20. She looked at the receipt like she couldn't believe it. That's all? That's all. She almost cried with relief, thanked me 3 times before she left. That was the job. Not glamorous, not impressive to people like my father, but real, necessary, honest. One of my guys, Tommy, came over after she drove away. You could have charged her $50. She would have paid it. Yeah, but 20's fair. He shrugged. You're too nice, boss. Maybe, but I slept fine at night. I stayed late, organizing inventory, checking the schedule for the expansion work starting in January. The new bays would double our capacity. The commercial contract with the delivery company was solid. Guaranteed work, steady income, room to grow. I'd built this. Brick by brick, customer by customer, fair price by fair price. My father had never understood that kind of building. He only understood occupying, taking credit for things other people made. When I finally locked up and headed home, my phone had 17 new messages. 3 from my father, all variations of the same theme. This was my fault. I'd betrayed the family. I'd regret this. One of them was just, You'll see what you've done. 4 from Elaine, calmer but still pointed, asking me to reconsider, asking me to talk to my grandmother, telling me that Richard was devastated, that this was tearing the family apart, that surely there was another way. 1 from Victor, just, You made your choice? The rest were from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably extended family who'd heard the news and wanted to weigh in with opinions nobody asked for. I deleted them all and went inside. Tuesday was the same. Work, messages, silence. I kept my head down, focused on what mattered. A couple more customers, routine maintenance, nothing dramatic. Around lunch, one of the delivery drivers from the new contract stopped by. Wanted to introduce himself, scope out the place. His name was Jake. Big guy, friendly, the kind of person who shook your hand like he meant it. "Heard good things about you," he said, looking around the shop. "Clean operation, professional." "We try." "That matters. Last place we used, tools everywhere. Half the time they couldn't find what they needed. Took twice as long as it should have." "Won't happen here." He nodded, satisfied. "Good to know. We've got 60 trucks. You're going to stay busy." After he left, Tommy whistled. 60 trucks. That's serious money. "That's serious work," I corrected. "We deliver, we keep the contract. We mess up, we lose it." "We won't mess up." "Damn right we won't." Wednesday, something shifted. I was under a car, replacing brake pads when my phone rang. I ignored it. 10 minutes later, it rang again. I rolled out from under the lift and checked the screen. Grandmother. I wiped my hands on a rag and answered. "Hello? Drew, how are you holding up?" "I'm fine." "Good. I wanted to let you know. Your father hired a lawyer." I'd expected that. "And?" "And the lawyer called Leonard this morning. They're claiming adverse possession." "What's that?" "It's a legal theory that says if you occupy a property long enough, you can claim ownership. It's absurd in this case. Your father has never paid property tax, never held a deed, never had a lease, but he's desperate." "Will it work?" "No. Leonard has already filed a response. The claim will be dismissed within a week. The judge won't even schedule a hearing. There's no legal standing." She paused. "But it tells me something." "What?" "Your father still doesn't understand. He thinks this is a negotiation. That if he fights hard enough, if he makes enough noise, I'll back down to avoid embarrassment." "Will you?" "Absolutely not. I've been in business 50 years, Drew. I've faced down corporate raiders, hostile takeovers, and men twice his size with 10 times his cunning. Your father throwing a tantrum doesn't even register." There was a certainty in her voice that left no room for doubt. "The demolition is scheduled for March 15th, she continued. "The construction crew is already lined up. Permits are approved. Your father has until then to vacate. After that, it happens whether he's out or not." "He'll leave," I said. "I know, but he'll make it dramatic. He'll want everyone to see him as the victim. He'll probably call the local news, try to spin some story about a heartless mother throwing her son out on the street." "Let him," she laughed, a short, sharp sound. "I like the way you think, Drew. You've got more spine than I gave you credit for. I learned from the best." Flatterer. But she sounded pleased. "Listen, I'm having dinner on Friday, just me and a few colleagues. Business associates, mostly. I'd like you to join us." I hesitated. I don't really fit in with that crowd. "You fit better than you think, and I want them to meet you. You're building something real. That matters more than pedigree." "What kind of colleagues?" "People who own things, buildings, companies, investments. People who understand that work creates value, not the other way around." She paused. "They're not going to judge you for running a tire shop. They'll respect that you built it yourself." "Okay," I said. "What time?" 7. I'll send a car." She hung up before I could ask anything else. I went back to work, but my mind was elsewhere. Dinner with my grandmother's business associates. The people who actually ran the city. People with power that didn't need to be announced. I thought about my father, scrambling to hire lawyers, trying to claim ownership of something that was never his. I thought about adverse possession, about the idea that occupying something long enough made it yours. He'd occupied my life for 32 years, occupied my confidence, my sense of worth, my belief in what I was building, but he'd never owned any of it. And now I was taking it back. Thursday was quiet. No messages, no calls, just work. I finished an alignment on a sedan, replaced a timing belt on an older pickup, helped a kid who'd run over a nail understand that sometimes repairs are cheaper than replacements. Normal day, good day. I finished up around 6 and drove home through the city. The streets were still decorated for Christmas, lights strung between lampposts, wreaths on storefronts. It all felt distant now, like it belonged to a different version of my life. The version where I still cared what my father thought. At home, I pulled out the one decent suit I owned. Tried it on. It still fit, barely. I'd bought it for Frank's retirement party 2 years ago and hadn't worn it since. I looked at myself in the mirror. Tire mechanic trying to look respectable? No. Small business owner, self-made. invited to dinner by one of the most powerful women in the city. I stood straighter. Yeah, that worked. I spent the evening reading up on commercial real estate development. If I was going to sit at a table with people who built things, I wanted to at least sound like I knew what they were talking about. Turned out my grandmother's project, the one replacing my father's house, was more significant than I'd realized. Mixed-use developments in that neighborhood were rare. The property value would triple once construction finished. She wasn't just tearing down a house. She was creating something that would stand for decades. That was the difference between her and my father. She built for the long term. He only thought about tomorrow's appearance. Friday arrived cold and clear. I worked a half day, then went home to shower and change. The suit looked better than I remembered. Simple, dark, professional. I polished my shoes, trimmed my beard, made sure I looked like someone worth listening to. The car arrived at 6:30, not the limousine this time. A sedan, understated and expensive. The driver nodded when I got in but didn't speak. We drove through the financial district, past buildings with names carved in stone, past doormen in uniforms that probably cost more than my monthly rent. The restaurant was tucked between two office towers, the kind of place with no sign outside, just a discreet entrance and a doorman who checked a list before letting you in. Inside, it was all dark wood and low lighting, quiet conversations at scattered tables, the kind of quiet that came from confidence, not secrecy. My grandmother was waiting in a private room at the back. 4 other people were already there, 3 men and 1 woman, all older, all dressed like they owned things, which they probably did. "Drew," my grandmother said, standing, "thank you for coming. Everyone, this is my grandson. Drew, this is Harold Bennett, Patricia Ng, James Kelso, and Robert Fraser." I shook hands with each of them. Their grips were firm, assessing, the kind of handshakes that measured you in seconds. We sat. A waiter appeared with wine. My grandmother ordered for the table. She knew exactly what everyone would want without asking. "Drew runs a tire service," she said. "Built it from the ground up. Just secured a commercial contract and he's expanding in January." Harold, who had the look of someone who'd spent 40 years in boardrooms, nodded. "Automotive?" "Yes, sir. Fleet maintenance mostly. Delivery trucks, company vehicles." "Good business, steady demand. Recession resistant too. People always need their vehicles running." "That's the idea." Patricia leaned forward. She had sharp eyes and silver hair pulled back tight. "Margaret tells us you did this without family backing." "Yes, ma'am." "Smart. Nothing makes you sharper than knowing there's no safety net. You learn to make better decisions when every mistake costs you directly." "I've made plenty of mistakes." "But you're still here. That's what matters." The conversation flowed from there. They asked about the business, about the expansion, about my plans for scaling, real questions, specific questions. They weren't being polite. They actually wanted to know. James, who apparently owned half the office buildings downtown, asked about profit margins. Robert, who'd made his money in manufacturing, wanted to know about equipment costs and maintenance schedules. I answered honestly. Showed them I knew my numbers, knew my business, knew what I was building. I realized something as I answered. They respected me. Not because of my last name, not because of who my father was, because I'd built something. Halfway through dinner, Harold asked, "Margaret mentioned some family property is being redeveloped. That's the Sycamore project?" My grandmother nodded. "Construction starts in March. Mixed use? Retail ground floor, condos above, high end. The location's perfect. Close to downtown, good schools, low crime. Should fill up fast. Good location for it." Harold glanced at me. "That's your father's place, isn't it?" "It was," I said carefully. "Was?" My grandmother stepped in smoothly. "My son has been living there as a courtesy. The property was always mine. Now it's time to put it to better use." Harold smiled slightly. "I see. Business decision?" "Exactly." Patricia raised her glass. "To business decisions." Everyone drank. No one pressed further. The message was clear. This was family business, but it was also just business, property, assets, decisions made with clear eyes and cold logic. No one looked at me like I'd done something wrong. No one suggested I should have protected my father from reality. They understood. In their world, ownership was ownership. Sentimentality didn't pay the bills. We finished dinner around 9:30. My grandmother walked me out to the car. "You did well," she said. "They were nice. They were impressed. There's a difference." She squeezed my arm. "Harold's going to call you next week. He's got a friend who owns a trucking company, looking for a reliable maintenance partner." "Really?" "Really. This is how it works, Drew. You build something real, You prove you can deliver, and people notice. Opportunities come, not because anyone's doing you favors, but because you've earned the chance to prove yourself again. The car door was open, waiting. "Thank you," I said. "You earned it." She smiled. "Now go home and get some rest. Things are about to get interesting." I climbed in and watched her walk back into the restaurant. Small, elegant, absolutely in control. She'd built an empire, and now she was making sure I understood how. She was right. Saturday morning, my father's lawyer filed an emergency injunction trying to stop the demolition. By Saturday afternoon, Leonard had it dismissed. The judge didn't even schedule a hearing, just read the filing, saw there was no legal standing, and threw it out. Sunday, my father showed up at the shop. I was alone, doing paperwork in the office, when I heard someone pounding on the front door. Heavy, aggressive pounding, the kind that said whoever was out there didn't care about being polite. I looked through the window and saw him standing there, red-faced and furious. I considered not opening it, considered calling the police and having him removed for trespassing. But then I thought, no, let him say what he came to say. Let him get it out of his system. Maybe then it would finally be over. I unlocked the door. He pushed past me into the shop, nearly knocking me aside. "You happy now?" "Hello to you too." "Don't give me that. Don't pretend like this is normal. You turned her against me. You poisoned her against her own son." "I didn't have to. You did that yourself." "I gave you everything. A home, a family, opportunities you never would have had. You gave me nothing I didn't earn, and you made sure I knew it wasn't enough. Every single time." He stepped closer, jabbing a finger at my chest. Not quite touching, but close enough to make the threat clear. "You think you're so smart, so independent, but you're nothing without this family. Nothing. I'm doing fine. You own a tire shop. You change oil for a living. You get your hands dirty because you're too stupid to use your brain. That's not success, Drew. That's survival." I looked at him, really looked at him, at the expensive watch on his wrist, the designer coat that probably cost $2,000, the shoes that were worth more than my rent, all of it purchased with money he didn't earn, from properties he didn't own, maintaining an image that was nothing but facade. And I realized something. I didn't care anymore. His opinion didn't matter. His approval didn't matter. He was just a man shouting in an empty room, trying to make himself feel important. "You're right," I said quietly. "It is survival, and I'm good at it." "She's senile. You know that? She's 81 years old and making decisions that don't make sense, tearing down a family home for some development project. It's insane. It's business. It's revenge, because you got your feelings hurt on Christmas. No, it's reality. You never owned that house. You just lived in it. And now that's over." His face twisted. For a second, I thought he might actually swing at me. His hands balled into fists, his jaw clenched, his whole body tensed. But he didn't, because deep down, he knew. Knew that if he crossed that line, if he actually tried to hurt me, he'd lose whatever shred of moral high ground he thought he had. "I could have given you so much more," he said. His voice was quieter now, almost sad. "If you'd just played along, done what was expected, you could have had a real career, real success. You could have been somebody." "Like you?" The words hung in the air between us. "Get out," he said. "You're in my shop." He stared at me, really saw me, maybe for the first time in years, saw that I wasn't backing down, wasn't apologizing, wasn't going to beg for his approval anymore. Then he turned and walked out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I stood there for a long time, listening to the silence. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline, from finally standing up, from refusing to fold. I went back to the office and sat down, stared at the paperwork on my desk without really seeing it. My phone buzzed, a text from Leonard. "Your father's lawyer just filed a lawsuit. Emotional distress, alienation of affection, a bunch of nonsense. Oh, don't worry about it. We'll have it dismissed by Wednesday." I wrote back, "Thanks." Another text came through, this time from my grandmother. "I heard about the visit. Are you all right?" "I'm fine." "Good. Let him rage. It changes nothing." I put the phone down and went back to work. Monday brought more legal maneuvers. My father's lawyer was filing everything he could think of, throwing anything at the wall to see what stuck. Leonard handled it all with the efficiency of someone who'd seen this play out 100 times before. Tuesday brought angry voicemails. My father, calling from different numbers, leaving messages that ranged from accusations to threats to something that almost sounded like pleading. I didn't listen to most of them, just deleted them and moved on. Wednesday brought a letter from my father's lawyer threatening a lawsuit for emotional distress, Leonard called it theatrical nonsense and filed another dismissal motion. By Thursday, the family group chat had gone silent. No more photos, no more holiday cheer, no more performative family unity, just silence. The kind of silence that comes when people realize the show is over and nobody's watching anymore. Around noon, I got a text from Elaine. We're moving out next weekend. Richard found a rental across town. It's smaller, but it'll do. I just wanted you to know. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me felt bad. Elaine had never been cruel. She'd just been there, passive, going along with whatever my father decided. But she'd also watched him lock me out in the cold and done nothing. I wrote back. I hope it works out. She didn't respond. Friday afternoon, I was closing up the shop when my phone rang. Harold Bennett, I answered. Hello? Drew? Harold, listen, I talked to my friend Tom Garrett. He runs Garrett Freight. 60 trucks, all over the Northeast. He's looking for a maintenance partner. Someone reliable, someone who won't gouge him, someone who treats his drivers right. I gave him your number. Expect a call Monday. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Just do good work. That's how reputations get built. One customer at a time, one job at a time. You screw this up, it reflects on me. You do it right, we both benefit. I understand. Good. Also, your grandmother speaks highly of you. That carries weight in this city. Don't waste it. He hung up before I could say anything else. I stood in the empty shop, phone in hand, and let it sink in. A contract with Garrett Freight. 60 trucks, regular maintenance, emergency repairs, fleet management. That was more work than I'd done in a year. Maybe more than I'd done since I opened the shop. All because I'd built something real. Because I'd proven I could deliver. The call came Monday at 9 a.m. Tom Garrett himself. His voice was gruff, no nonsense, the kind of voice that said he'd been in the trucking business for 30 years and didn't suffer fools. Drew Holden? Yes, sir. Harold says you're reliable. That true? I'd like to think so. I don't care what you think. I care what you do. I've got 60 trucks. They break down. I lose money. Lots of money. I need someone who can keep them running. Can you do that? Yes, sir. How fast can you get a truck back on the road if it comes in with a major issue? It depends on the issue, but I prioritize commercial clients. If it's something I can fix, it gets fixed fast. If it needs parts, I'll source them same day when possible. What about after hours? I've got a guy on call. If it's an emergency, we handle it. He was quiet for a moment. Testing me, probably. Seeing if I'd oversell or make promises I couldn't keep. All right, he said finally. I want to see your operation. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., I'll bring my fleet manager. You show us what you've got. We'll talk numbers. I'll be ready. You better be. He hung up. I spent the rest of the day making sure the shop was spotless. Organized tools, clean floors, equipment checked and ready. I briefed Tommy and the other guys. Be professional, be respectful, show them we know what we're doing. Tuesday at 10, Tom Garrett walked in with a man named Luis. Tom was exactly what I expected. Mid-50s, built like someone who'd loaded trucks himself once upon a time, eyes that missed nothing. Luis was younger, maybe 40, with the efficient manner of someone who'd spent his life keeping complicated systems running. Show us around, Tom said. I gave them the tour. Showed them the bays, the equipment, the lift systems, explained our process, our turnaround times, our quality checks. Luis asked technical questions. Good questions. The kind that showed he knew his stuff. I answered honestly. Showed them invoices, work orders, customer reviews. Let the work speak for itself. After an hour, Tom nodded. All right, let's talk numbers. We sat in my office. Cramped, barely big enough for 3 people, nothing fancy. I laid out a proposal. Fair rates, bulk discount for fleet work, priority service guarantees. Tom countered. I adjusted. We went back and forth. By noon, we had a deal. Tom stood and shook my hand. You screw this up. Harold's going to hear about it. I won't. We'll see. They left. I sat in the office, staring at the signed contract on my desk. More work than I'd ever had. More responsibility, more risk, but also more opportunity, more growth, more proof that I could build something that mattered. I called my grandmother to tell her. Congratulations, she said. I told you opportunities come. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have. It would have just taken longer. She paused. The house is empty now. Your father moved out yesterday. Demolition is scheduled for next week. How is he? I don't know. I haven't asked. There was no cruelty in her voice, just finality. The kind of finality that comes when you've made a decision and refuse to second-guess it. Drew, she said, let me tell you something. There are two kinds of people in this world, people who build and people who occupy. Your father is an occupier. He finds something someone else built and makes it his own, puts his name on it, takes credit, acts like he did the work, but he never builds anything himself. And me? You build, even when no one's watching, even when no one believes in you. That's why you'll be fine. That's why you'll always be fine. The demolition was scheduled for March 15th, 2 weeks away. I thought about going to watch, thought about standing across the street and seeing the house come down, but that felt wrong, too vindictive, too much like something my father would do. Instead, I focused on the expansion. The new bays were being installed. The equipment was ordered. The 2 new hires started training. Everything was moving forward. On March 10th, my grandmother called. I'm having a small gathering on the 14th, the night before the demolition, just family. I'd like you to be there. Family? You, me, Leonard. That's family enough. What about Richard? He's invited. Whether he comes is up to him. I agreed to be there. The gathering was at her penthouse. I arrived at 7, wearing the same suit from the business dinner. Leonard was already there, drink in hand. Drew, he said, shaking my hand. Good to see you. You too. My grandmother appeared from the kitchen carrying a tray of appetizers. She looked elegant as always. Silver hair perfect, simple black dress, pearls at her throat. Help yourself, she said. Your father should be here soon. He's coming? He said he would. We'll see. We stood in her living room, 30 floors above the city, and made small talk. Leonard asked about the expansion. I told him about the Garrett contract. He looked impressed. At 7:30, the doorbell rang. My grandmother opened it. My father stood there, alone. No Elaine, no Victor, just him, looking smaller than I remembered. Richard, my grandmother said. Come in. He entered slowly, eyes moving around the room. Landing on me, his expression hardened. Drew. Dad. We stood there, the 4 of us, in uncomfortable silence. My grandmother gestured to the couch. Sit. Let's talk. My father sat. I took the chair across from him. Leonard stayed standing by the window. Tomorrow, my grandmother began, the house comes down. I wanted us all here tonight because I think it's important to be clear about why. I know why, my father said bitterly. Because Drew wanted revenge. No, because you never understood what you had. You lived in a house I bought, managed properties I developed, and spent 40 years acting like you built an empire. You didn't. I did. And I let you believe otherwise because I thought eventually you'd learn. Learn what? Humility, gratitude, respect. She paused. But you never did. Instead, you treated your own son like he was beneath you because he chose to build something himself. You locked him out of a house that wasn't yours because he had the audacity to remind you of that. He disrespected me at my own table. It wasn't your table, it was mine. Everything in that house is mine, and tomorrow it stops existing. My father's hands were shaking. You're punishing me. I'm correcting a mistake. I should have done this years ago. He looked at me. And you're just going to sit there? Let her talk to me like this? She's telling the truth, I said. I'm your father. You're the man who locked me outside in the cold on Christmas Eve, who told me I wasn't good enough my entire life, who made sure I knew I was an embarrassment to the family. I kept my voice level. So yeah, I'm going to sit here. Everything I did was to push you to be better. No. Everything you did was to make yourself feel bigger. The room went silent. My grandmother stood. Richard, you have a choice now. You can keep fighting reality, keep pretending you were wronged, keep blaming everyone else, or you can accept what happened and move forward. Move forward to what? That's up to you. She walked to a cabinet and pulled out an envelope, handed it to him. What's this? A job offer. One of my property managers is retiring. I need someone to take over. It's real work, not just showing up and collecting a check. Real management, real responsibility, the pay is fair, not generous, and you'll be accountable. He opened the envelope and read, You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance. What you do with it is your business. He stared at the paper for a long time. Then he looked at me. And you? You just walk away the winner? I'm not trying to win. I'm just trying to live my life. Must be nice, having everything work out. I built everything I have. You want it to work out? Build something? He stood up abruptly, walked to the door, stopped with his hand on the handle. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For Christmas, for all of it. Then he left. The door closed behind him. My grandmother sat down, looking tired suddenly. Well, that's done. Do you think he'll take the job? I asked. I don't know, but I've given him the option. That's all I can do. Leonard finished his drink. I should go. Early morning tomorrow. He left a few minutes later. I stayed, helping my grandmother clean up the glasses and plates. Are you coming tomorrow? She asked. To watch? I don't think so. Why not? Because it's not about me. It never was. She smiled. You're smarter than I thought. I learned from you. Flatterer. March 15th arrived cold and gray. I went to the shop early before the crew arrived. Spent the morning doing regular work, oil changes, tire rotations, the bread and butter of the business. Around 11, my phone buzzed. A text from my grandmother. It's done. Just those 2 words. I stared at them for a long moment. Then I put the phone away and went back to work. The house was gone. The place where I'd grown up, where I'd been dismissed and belittled and erased. It was rubble now. Dust and broken boards and empty space. And I felt nothing but relief.